want to thank everybody for joining us for our year-end planning for Sage 500. Just so everybody knows, everybody will be muted, but please send any chat questions, any questions in the chat button, and we'll see what we can do to address those. Open the lines at the end. If we can't reply during the webinar, we'll get back to you afterwards. We have several people presenting today, so to get you introduced to a few of our RKL team members and change things up a bit. I am Darlene Hatman. I am a solution architect. I will be discussing the preparation for 2023 and closing of 2022, as well as some general health checks and updates, including physical inventory and some housekeeping items. Chuck Zugler is also a solution architect, and he will be covering the 1099s this year. Becky Keene, which many of you probably know, will touch on the Sage FAS updates. And Russ Griffith, who is the director of the Sage 500 group, will be reviewing some security information important to those using Avalara and going over some RKL web tools and online blogs. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Chuck so he can start on the 1099s.
Thanks, Darlene. Hello,
yes.
Everyone. I'm Chuck Zuliger, and let's go over 1099s. Not a lot of changes. The 1099 miscellaneous form, they did make a change like all the other forms where the year is now going to be printed on the form when you print the forms instead of being pre-printed from the IRS. The only other change is that the FATC filing requirements checkbox, which was already there on prior year forms, has been given a number, and they gave it number 13. Therefore, they had to push out the numbers, increment the numbers by 1 for all the other boxes. So 13 through 17 from last year became 14 to 18 from this year. Let's go to the next slide. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. You see the highlighted areas, and they had to put the state income tax off to the side over there. They're running out of room. Hopefully, the fact that they're having us print the year on the form means that they want to use a form more than 1 year without making a change. And hopefully we won't see any changes in coming years for a while. Let's go to the next slide. So the supported versions of Sage 500. Sage is going to do something a little different this year. They're going to put out 1099 updates for version 2018, even though support ended with the release of version 2023 this October. You'll recall usually Sage supports the current version and 2 versions back. So that would mean that typically they would not support version 2018. Going forward, if Sage releases version 2024 next fall and sticks to this pattern, they may exclude version 2019 from 1099 updates as an unsupported version. We'll have to see. If you have version 2017 or earlier, it's not supported by Sage. You'll recall you're not really printing 1099s from Sage no matter what version you're on. Right now, it's an interface to Atrix software where you can have them print the forms and file them for you, or, well, there's various options in how much you can have them do for you. RKL has developed some updates for customers in the past. If they're on an older version, that will allow 1099 information to be output from the system. And just expect, as usual, to use an online service to print your forms. Let's go to the next option. Deadlines. So for the 1099 interest, miscellaneous, and dividend, the IRS due date is February 28th. And for the NEC, that's January 31st. As the asterisk would indicate for the first three forms there, the due date is March 31st if filing electronically. And then the recipient due date for all of these four forms, January 31st. Now, there's a link here for deadlines to get more information on any of those deadlines or some other form you might have an interest or need to know about. Yes, there is an extension, but it's only 30 days, and it's supposed to be a true emergency. You'll need to check a box on the form for the reasons such as fire, death, serious illness, things like that. It's not like a 1040. I mean, you can do that online by completing a filling form through the fire system website, and you get an acknowledgement to display online if you file that request by the due date of the return. Penalties are the same as last year, $50 per form within 30 days, 110, 31 through 81, etc. And the filing numbers, the electronic filing requirement numbers are the same. 250 or more of any one type of form requires that you file electronically. Let's go to the next slide. So, reviewing vendor payments. Accounts payable activities edit 1099 data is a function that's been available that you can use to go in and change 1099 data. Say mid-year, you might have a situation where someone entered vendor invoices and made payments before they realized the vendor would even need a 1099. And hopefully you're sending out W-9 forms with any new vendor that aren't obviously corporation. The beginning balance, 1099 payments, be edited. Standard reports and explore screens are a good start to review your data. Explore vendors, however, is missing the last payment date and other useful 1099 information like the 1099 type. And Explore vendor payments doesn't have any 1099 data. Those are standard Sage 500 views. You can email RKL support. Email number is there, and what we've done is added some custom explore screens that, for instance, will give you 3-year vendor payment history, vendors with missing 1099 payments, and a vendor list with the 1099 type and the last payment date. Let's go to the next slide. So, credit card payments. If your 1099 process has become too cumbersome, pay 1099 vendors with credit cards. As you probably know, if you do that, payments aren't reported by you. The credit card issuer will have to file a 1099-K with the IRS to report those payments to those vendors. Back to the RKL Explorer, out of the box, it won't show credit card payments separately. So if you need that, you'll probably want to contact us about adjusting it a bit so that you can see information such as credit card payment and bank account on the Explorer screens. Let's go to the next slide. Here's some links to the online services that are available. Obviously, Atrix is integrated with Sage 500, but there are others available. And the rates vary depending on how much of the servicing you want the online service to do. We feel that having to go through and stuff envelopes and print things and put postage on, etc., is quite cumbersome, and that the rates easily outweigh their cost and benefit to you to have it completely filed by the online service. Let's go to the next slide. Here's a resource list. 1099 instructions. I'm just going to pause here and say that you will receive a set of these slides, so you'll have these links to use. And one of the links on here, the order forms online. You might want to go ahead and order some forms just to have some copies to read the instructions, etc. They're free, up to 20 of any one type. And it might be nice if you come down to the last minute and find that you have a 1099 that is going to be due you weren't aware of. You could actually just use a pen and fill in the information and get that last 1099 out. So it might be nice to have some of those around. That's it for 1099s for me. I'm going to turn it over to Russ to talk about Avalara.
All right, thanks, Chuck. So I'm going to talk through an update that Avalara made to their service, and they're working on rolling this out currently. So this definitely affects anybody that's utilizing Sage 500 for tax calculation. It would also potentially affect anybody who's using Avalara tax calculation with other solutions, whether it be your e-commerce platform or any other type, point of sale system, etc. Each one of those that's making that real-time call to calculate tax with Avalara needs to be updated to support the new security protocol, TLS 1.2. I guess it's not really new, but they are deprecating support for the older security protocols 1.0 and 1.1. Originally, they had indicated that this would support for those would end on 12/31/2022. However, they did push it out into February just because they didn't want it to cause a lot of challenges for people, including them, as the year end occurred. So they did push it out to February 16th. They also are getting a little more assertive about notifying clients. So if you are getting any notifications from Avalara indicating that you're interacting with them with non-compliant transactions, that essentially means you're still communicating from your Sage 500 system or another application using 1.0 or 1.1. Avalara did provide updates for the supported versions of Sage 500 at the time they made this announcement, which was around February of 2022. So they provided updates for the 2018, 2019, and 2021 versions. They have not yet released an installer for the 2023 version, but the expectation is when they do, that will also support the TLS 1.2. I don't expect that to be out until sometime in 2023. They're generally about 6 to 9 months behind the release of Sage. In addition, we did pull together a blog about this. If you want to read a little bit more and understand the update, you can find that on our RKL eSolutions page. The link is here. As Chuck said, we'll get this slide deck so it'll be easy to find. And as I mentioned before, you also just want to check any other solutions that you might be using that interact with the Avalara connector. Most of those, if they're like Shopify or, a platform that provides the connection to Avalara, they most likely have taken care of that for you. You just want to make sure that that update has been installed or applied to your environment. All right. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Darlene.
Okay, so I am going to go through preparing for 2023 and closing for 2022. This is a quick checklist of year-end closing. The order doesn't have to be strictly followed other than for each module. Check that everything is posted prior to closing. If another step, if other steps aren't done in the order and it does matter, the system will tell you. For example, closing GL until all other modules are closed. Also note that when you close AP, it will also close PO. Here is a quick list of the batch types and some reports for closing. So the inventory management, accounts payable, accounts receivable, sales orders, cash management, and general ledger. A couple of reports you can run is the inventory closing report and the purchasing clearing report. To prepare for 2023, you're going to need to make sure that you have the next fiscal calendar year available and open. You can navigate to the Setup Fiscal Calendar task within the General Ledger module. Then click the fiscal year drop-down and check to see if 2023 already exists. If it does not exist, to add the year, just click on Add Year button and then add your periods. Click Yes to the message beginning balance for new fiscal year and ID will be calculated. Do you wish to process? All accounting periods are initially set to an open status. The status may be changed from closed to open in order to make adjusting journals to the closed period. You cannot change a period from open to closed in this task, though. An open period may not be closed manually. Only the period in processing can close a period. When a period is open, the fiscal year is also set to an open status. The fiscal year may only be closed by performing the year-end closing using the period end process. So once the year is created, you have the option to open the periods. Click the status drop-down to open the period. It is recommended that you don't open the period until you're closer to that period in time. The start date column of the following period will always default to the following day of the end date in the previous period. If you need to modify these dates from a period that is earlier in the year, it's easier to just delete all the periods after the effective period and then adjust the end date. Once the correct end date is in, click Add Period to quickly fill in the year. The fiscal period, or the fiscal calendar setup will also allow you to lock periods, so unwanted postings will be blocked. If you want to lock or unlock periods, you can do this module by module. Locking periods will prevent postings into those periods. Sage 500 allows you to default the modules to unlock when future periods are created. These controls are in the setup option task for each module. Here's an example of the AP option. If the unlock all future periods is checked, then the new year creation will set all the periods to unlock. You can also specify a number of periods to unlock. This can, of course, be updated manually in the fiscal calendar if needed. The inventory calendar must be set up before posting transactions to the year. This calendar is located under the IM setup, and in the setup IM options task, you will find a button called Inventory Calendar under the Miscellaneous tab. To create a new year, click the cancel icon. That'll clear the grid of the current year, and then you can simply type in the new year in the year field. For quick setup, you may choose the copy from button to use the same start date and end dates of the previous year, or there's a monthly option to fill the period start and end dates in the new year. The workday value column are used by replenishment, demand, and safety stock formulas. When saving a new year or editing an existing year in the inventory calendar, the system prompts an inventory history recalculation. This is required to put the current balances into the correct tables. So click yes to that message. If this has been slow in the past, you can contact RKL. We can assist in creating this for you via the back end. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Becky for a moment to talk about Sage Fixed Assets.
Yeah, I'll need a moment or maybe 2 minutes. We'll see. It won't be long. Okay, so those of you who have Sage Fixed Assets, aka FAS, aka Premier Depreciation, reminder that Sage comes out with an update every year. And if you're using FAS for your tax depreciation, and it's very effective for that, you don't have to send your books off to your tax accountant to do it, you'll definitely want to stay current on those. The rules are changing again for 2023, and the changes have been incorporated in the 2023 release. Now it's 2022, but they have already issued the 2023 release. And actually, the big changes this year were implemented a couple of years ago within the software so that it was ready. But if you're not up on your on your fixed assets, you really should be. So the big change for this year is the first year bonus depreciation. The 168K allowance is going to be phased out starting next year. So as of 2023, instead of getting 100% bonus depreciation on certain purchases, you'll only be able to get an extra 80% in 2023, 60% in 2024, 40% the next year, all the way down to 0 in 2027. Unless, of course, they change the rules again between now and then, which is pretty likely. We know these rules don't stay stable. For those of you who aren't doing the tax books, it's still a good idea to stay on top of the FAS releases. You can contact us. We can knock them off pretty quick, since FAS software is not normally customized. It's not an upgrade that takes a lot of effort or requires tests and things going on. And every year, especially when there aren't a lot of tax changes, the engineers work pretty hard on usability. Just lots of little things that make it easier to get around. And the other thing is, when we do an upgrade of Sage FAS, you don't just get to jump from 2018 to 2023. We have to take the 2018 version you're on and upgrade it to 2019, to 2020, to 2021. So, yeah, probably faster than going on and doing it once a year, but still takes a while and becomes a lot more effort. In fact, I've had ones that it got so far behind that it was simpler just to export all the assets, install a new version, and import all the assets. So there are updates with FAS, and you want to stay on top of them. So back to Darlene.
Okay, so I'm going to go through some general health checks and some updates. We'll start with physical inventory. So you're going to want to have a plan for that. You're going to want to know when, who, and are you going to need weekend coverage from RKL? Just let us know if you're doing a big physical, and we can make sure someone from RKL is on standby if you need. When you create your original count badge, you get a filter by warehouse by bins. When you create the badge, you print either count cards or count sheets. Count cards are 1 page of paper with each item and bin combination and are handed out to the count group. And then they just tack it up against the bins that they are counting. The count sheets are more like an Excel spreadsheet. It's paper with about 30 to 40 items on each page with each item and bin combination on the individual lines. Once you get done doing your counts, if you've kept that information in Excel, you can use Data Porter to import your counts to avoid doing manual data entry. When entering your counts, you can show the counted. This is at the individual count record level. You can show counted, uncounted, or both by using the apply button on that screen. You can set the uncounted to 0. So if you've counted everything and you've entered all those counts and you still have count cards or sheets that don't have quantity because they don't exist anymore, you can just set those all to 0. Timing of when you freeze your count is very important. You don't want to freeze your counts too early. When you freeze your count, it takes that quantity and locks that number in, and that is the number that you're going to be doing your comparison against. So what you want to do is you want to create the account batch, print the count documents, and get everybody ready to start counting. And then when all the data entry for that day is up to date on what physically happened in the warehouse, you'll want to do the freeze. Once you do the freeze, you can just start your regular transaction processing again immediately after the freeze. If you freeze those quantities at the very last moment, that will allow for less reconciliation. So there are 3 standard reports for the physical inventory. Missing count cards. This is anything where there is not an entry made for the count card. And then the reconciliation report. This shows the activity that occurred after the freeze. So again, helps with timing. If you do your freeze at the very last minute, there'll be less transactions to reconcile. And then, of course, the discrepancy report. This shows the quantity difference from the quantity that was frozen to the quantity that was counted. And then in new versions of Sage 500, there are explorers available for pending physical counts. But also RKL has created some custom explorer views with dollars and real discrepancies based on selections. So if you want some of those, you can send us an email and we can get help out to you. The next thing I'm going to talk about is disaster recovery. This is very, very important. Ransomware is real, so you need a disaster recovery plan. The RKL infrastructure team can help you set up a plan, or you can visit Microsoft support for information on creating a plan. A few things to do to make sure that you have a physical copy of your emergency contacts or a copy that is on a computer that is not within your network. We've had customers, even with great controls, get hit by ransomware. For your SQL environment, offsite backups are critical. You're going to want to test your recovery plan from those offsite backups to make sure that those backups are working. We've seen that too, where the backups don't actually back up. So you're going to want to test that. A good way to test your disaster recovery plan is to run through your process using your test environment, as if it was going to be your restored production environment. And make sure that you have your SQL and Sage install media and product keys handy. And also, if you use credit cards, make sure you have your master password and encryption keys. So next thing I'm going to talk about is some housekeeping items. So some easy areas to reduce data to help with performance and straining resources is that you can inactivate some unused accounts, such as GL, customers, inactive vendors, inactive items. You can use the vendor performance report. It's a great way to rank your vendors and find out if you need to inactivate any. Then you can use tools like Data Porter to quickly update those statuses, such as active or inactive for customers and vendors. And then use Data Porter for those updates. The next thing you're going to want to do is train your users to create some custom filters and saving those filters as default when they're opening. One of the things that you can do that we have on one of our blogs is turning off the load immediately for lookup views. So what this will do is when you do a lookup, the data is not initially loaded until the user hits the refresh. This can be done module by module, and then for each view in that module. And what you do is you just go into the maintain lookup view tasks, and you can change each lookup one by unchecking the load immediately. There's also an option in the BI insight views and context menus, similar. It's called allow load at startup. And this can help speed up the Explorer views in that same kind of way. If you don't want to do it by module, you want to make this a global change. If you have someone who is SQL savvy administrator, they can update a couple of tables, but this can only be done by someone who has access to the database and can execute basic SQL statements. This is the command to do it, but if you want, you can reach out to RKL support and we can help you with this. Some other purging data that is safe and easy is to remove old POs and sales order transactions, but don't remove this if you want to refer back to the details. But system manager activity and audit logs are good for purging as well. And it will purge the TCI DB activity log if you have the audit tracking turned on. Also work tables, these should be, they're supposed to clean up after themselves, but sometimes they don't. So you're gonna want to truncate those tables. You can contact RKL. We can assist you with some of your housekeeping plans. We can clean up all these inactive for your users, both within Sage 500 and in SQL. And we have other routines that will go through and truncate your work tables, as well as other tables that I have listed here. Menus and security groups. The menu upgrade utility will show you menu items that Sage has added to the standard menu, but they may not be on your custom menu. If RKL did your upgrade, we typically do this, but if it happened to get missed, it's not it's not on a menu anywhere. You actually have to go out to this directory and execute this menu upgrade utility, and it will show you differences in your menus. If you've been on the software for a while, it's good to come back and review your security, specifically for segregations of duties. If a user is in multiple groups, the highest permission will apply to that user. And segregation of duties is important. Segregation controls tend to become less stringent the longer you're on the software, and you should review this periodically. And again, RKL has views to help you identify these. Performance review tuning. The RKL infrastructure team can assist you with your SQL Server performance by doing a SQL Server system configuration and review. This will include new virtual server configuration suggestions, including storage design, CPU, memory, network, VMware settings, backups, some performance monitoring tools. So they can also offer some additional scripts with suggested indexes, or maybe even dropping some indexes. So now I'm going to turn it over to Russ, and he's going to talk about the RKL web tools and online blogs.
All right. So there are a couple different places you can go for some additional information, potentially some help. So one of those places is our webpage. RKL, our team members do work to write up blogs about common topics that our customers bring to us. Actually, the one that Darlene was talking about a little bit ago, the disabling of the auto load. There's actually a blog on that that walks you through how to disable it, just like what she was showing in this webinar. So that if you ever want to refer back to that, you can go right out and take a look at that and follow the instructions to complete that. We also have all of our past webinars and recordings, just like this one will be available shortly after we complete it today. You'd be able to go out and review any of this or any other blog or recording that we have out there. If you don't know how to get a hold of us, obviously our contact numbers should be there, and you'd be able to get that information as well. The quick note here for our support team is that you can reach out to them directly at support@rklesolutions.com. We like to point that out because that is a email box that is monitored by a group of folks from 8 a.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern. If you're reaching out directly to one individual at RKL, it is possible they're out on PTO, or they're working with a client, or they're doing an activity that doesn't allow them to quickly respond to you. The support desk does always have somebody assigned to review incoming emails. You'll get an immediate response back indicating that your email was received from our automated system, but then someone will work to get that case assigned and follow up with you. In addition to that, you also have access, if you're on maintenance with Sage, to some of their resources. So the Sage support team, they also have a Sage knowledge base that allows you to go in and search for various topics. In addition, there is Sage City, which is a online page where you can go and create an account, and you can ask questions of other Sage users, Sage partners, Sage employees. It is monitored by all of those different types of people, whoever has an account. So if you have a question and you want to see if someone else has run into that issue, or a way to address something differently than what you're doing today, it's always a great place to throw it out and just see what kind of feedback you get. So with that, I think we're going to jump to the next slide. And we have some deals that our marketing team has pulled together for us. These are some products that we work with: Flowcast, Lease Query, and Avalara. Have all indicated some discounts. Some of them look like they're good through year end. Others don't indicate the exact end date. So if there is anything there that would interest you, let us know, and we can get you in contact with the right person. All right. And at this point, we wanted to open it up for any questions. If anybody has anything that they'd like us to discuss more of from the presentation today, or if you have other questions, I'm happy to try to address those as well.
Or while they're thinking about that, there were a few times Darlene mentioned Data Porter, and I would hope that everybody in this group knows how to use Data Porter. If you're going, what's Data Porter? I would recommend sending something on to RKL support, or we can talk about it now. The 1 minute overview is that you can take Excel with a certain layout and feed it directly into forms. It's essentially a fast typist that works all over the place and is extremely useful.
while we're waiting as well, I just want to reiterate some of the performance things Darlene was speaking of, the load data on start, and just the practice of opening explore screens such as inventory transactions or invoices, purchase orders, and allowing all that data to load. It's just a tremendous burden on the system when you think of how many users will be doing that in a day's time. So I encourage you to follow up on that if you'd like to improve your system performance.
Okay, well, if there are no questions, thank you again for joining us and happy holidays.
Bye now.
Yes, thank you, everyone.